Today's podcast is brought to you by Visa. With the capacity to process over 65,000 transaction messages every second, Visa has been bringing innovations to the way we pay for over 60 years. Imagine a world where, instead of just tapping to pay with Visa, you had to wait for everyone in front of you to cut a check. Everywhere you went. Imagine how much fun it'd be trying to track down your cousin in Milwaukee for league dues. That's why Visa's vision is to be the best way to pay and be paid everywhere, so you won't have to. Whatever your goals are, Visa makes paying fast and easy. The only thing left to figure out is, where would you like to be? Visa, everywhere you want to be.
Hi everyone, good morning and welcome to First Things First.
What's everybody laughing? Everybody, hi everybody.
Man, I'm Jenna Wolfe. That's Nick Wright, former Pro Bowl quarterback.
What's going on,
How are you doing? What's on the cover of the this is the New York paper. They got a chief on there.
All right.
My goodness.
Nick.
Hi everybody. What a day
There's
in America.
a system. Get it all out.
No. I got
Really?
3 hours to get it all out. What a day. This is going to be the greatest show we've ever done. I really mean it. Good to see you, my friend.
Good to see you, Nick. Good to see you, Jenna.
Well, you're about to find out.
It's a wild weekend in the NFL. Brendan, I'm going to tell you absolutely everything you need to know about this man right here. He's the happiest human on earth right now and for the foreseeable future.
I see. I was worried about him for a little bit last night.
No concern.
I wonder why. Your Chiefs did really well. Let us start with those aforementioned Chiefs. They beat the Texans 51-31. That's not the news. The news is that they trailed 24-0 after a series of mistakes and miscues by Kansas City. But Pat Mahomes mounted an unbelievable comeback to the tune of 321 yards and 5 touchdowns. First team in NFL history to win a playoff game by at least 20 after trailing by at least 20. Here is Pat Mahomes after the big win.
Obviously, we didn't want to be in that spot, but the biggest thing that I think I was preaching to the team was, let's go do something special. Let's go do something special. Everybody's already counting us out. Let's just go play by play and just put our best effort out there. And I mean, obviously, I knew as a team we had to kind of everything had to go the right way. But I thought the defense stepped up, special teams stepped up. Offensively, we started making the plays we weren't making, and play by play, we just chipped away at that lead and then got the half and came out the second half and kept firing. We're going to fight to the end. We don't care what the score is. We don't care if we're down 24, if we're up 24. We're going to put our best effort every single play. And I think that's just the mentality of this team.
You love that man, don't you?
Oh, I love that. That's a true story.
All right, so let's break it down a little bit. We all watched this game. How did the Chiefs mount this epic comeback? Because let me tell you, it looked pretty tough early on.
It looked like a lot of awful, horrifying Chiefs playoff moments. But the simple answer is how they do it. They have the best player in football. They have the best player in the league at any position, doing anything. That guy right there, number 15, Patrick Mahomes. The bigger picture is, while everyone was panicking, including Andy Reid, down just 14 points, and all of a sudden we're taking out the Pro Bowl kick returner, Mecole Hardman, putting Tyreek back there, Patrick Mahomes had a steady hand. Patrick Mahomes went to the sideline and told guys just individually, do one thing great. And as soon as he said that, Mecole Hardman takes a kick return 40 yards, and there's a little bit of a heartbeat. And then Patrick Mahomes finds Damian Williams on the play we've shown, a perfect pass right to the running back coming out of the backfield. And then there's a little more of a heartbeat. And then, God bless him, Bill O'Brien showed up. And dear God, that's Bill O'Brien's music. And we're doing a fake punt on 4th and 4. And now
after not going for it on 4th and 1.
And Brandon mentioned it. It was before the show. He said the consecutive 4th down decisions of not going for a 4th and 1 and then going for a 4th and fake punt, it's absurd. And now you got a real heartbeat. And then what happens in playoff games? Guy makes a mistake. Kick returner for the Texans fumbles the ball. And at that point, the Chiefs are overwhelming favorites. They're down 24-14. They're overwhelming favorites at that point because you knew they were going to score again. They were getting the ball at halftime. But Brandon, for them to be down 24-0 with 10 minutes left in the second quarter, and to have a halftime lead, it's quite literally never happened in the history of the NFL, 100 years, postseason or regular season, and they did it because the Texans fell apart and because they have the best player in the league in Patrick Mahomes.
Definitely. You alluded to that. Patrick Mahomes' leadership yesterday, it was impeccable. You know, The Texans defense wasn't suffocating the Chiefs offense. It was just they was dropping passes. Kelsey dropped the key pass early. Robinson dropped the key pass early.
And they was a couple,
and they was wide open. So Andy Reid and Eric Bieniemy, they was orchestrating this offense well. The Chiefs was just rusty. So once the Chiefs settled down, they went out, they made the plays they should have made, and once they started making a few plays, the Texans fell apart. And you alluded to the fact just now that Bill O'Brien helped this team so much because when you were up 21-0 and you got a chance in the Chiefs red zone to go up 28-0 and put them away, on 4th and 1, you have to. So when you don't go forward and kick the field goal and then come around and try to do a fake punt in your own red zone, that's all the momentum they need in Arrowhead. Arrowhead is a tough place to play already, so you can't give this fan base no life, and it just all went to the Chiefs, momentum, and they just kept going and kept going. And that was the end of once halftime came, I knew the Texans was done.
If I wasn't sold on Mahomes, I was, and it was something you alluded to. There was a shot of Andy Reid after the block punt or whatever it was, where he was just stunned. He was a little shell-shocked, didn't say anything, didn't talk to anyone. And then right after that, you see the shot of Mahomes running up and down that sideline, yelling, getting his guys fired up. And it's just then you say to yourself, this guy's not only a leader on the field, he's the complete leader, a complete package off of it. When you look at Patrick Mahomes, did he cement himself yesterday as the best player in the game?
I think he cemented himself as the best player because he didn't get rattled. And I think this helped Andy Reid so much having a young quarterback because, like you alluded to, Andy Reid probably even thought like, oh, this is my playoff curse. I can't escape this. But Patrick Mahomes haven't experienced this. All he knows is, hey, I don't want to go out like last year. I went to the AFC Championship last year, and he has a fresh memory when it comes to postseason.
Because, Brandon, quickly, what are guys thinking when they're sitting on the sideline, a team as successful as the Chiefs, you see what's happening on the field, and you're watching your season sort of button up against the line here. What are you thinking as a player?
Whether you're a player or a coach, it's human instinct to think, oh, here we go again. Once this game started unfolding the way it did, it's human nature to think like we just have a playoff curse. We got to get ourselves out of this. And Hartman, the unsung hero for the Chiefs this season, who they might not would have drafted if Tyreek Hill wasn't into that trouble at the beginning of the season. I feel like if he wouldn't have made that return, the Chargers game, that would have got them that bye. If he wouldn't have made this kick return this game, the Chiefs would have been in trouble.
Well, and another guy who's been the subject of a lot of scorn for Kansas City, Daniel Sorensen. He comes into the lineup because Juan Thornhill, the guy they drafted to replace him, gets hurt in Week 17. Sorensen snuffed out the fake punt. He saw Justin Reed kind of bobbing side to side. Something was off there, and he snuffs it out. Open field tackle. Gets him, because if he doesn't get him, that's a first down and then some. And then he's also the one who forced the fumble on the kickoff a few plays later to really get the Chiefs going. But on Patrick Mahomes, our guests and our friends of the show always laugh and kind of make fun of me a bit whenever we do those take your pick segments or in or out segments. My answer is always Patrick Mahomes. Who's the best player in the league? Patrick Mahomes. Who's the scariest quarterback in the playoffs? Patrick Mahomes. Who's the best quarterback? It's always Patrick Mahomes. And you know why? Because it's correct. He is the best player in football. He's the best quarterback in football. He's the scariest player in football. Lamar deserved the MVP. Lamar had the best season. There is not a person alive who thinks there is anyone playing the position that is better than number 15. And now he just had one of the greatest playoff games ever. That should not be lost in this. Yes, it's an epic comeback, and it's critical for the Chiefs because had they lost, the narrative about Andy Reid, it would be overwhelming. The Chiefs curse that a lot of people said, well, they have a tortured playoff history, but the players on this team don't. Well, they all of a sudden would, especially when you consider that they lost a home AFC Championship game last year. All of that was taken away because of that kid, because of this 24-year-old that is just absolutely better than everyone else. And to be down 24-0, rally the troops, score touchdowns on 7 consecutive possessions. It was the biggest comeback in the NFL playoffs since Brady and the Pats down 28-3 in the Super Bowl. Little context on that. Now, that is the Super Bowl, by the way. But they were down 25, and it took them 23 game minutes to tie the game to force overtime. The Chiefs are down 24. It took them 9.5 minutes to take the lead.
Yeah.
Because every time they got the ball, You knew they were going to score, and unfortunately for the Texans, they also knew they were going to score, and they probably also knew Bill O'Brien was going to have no answers at halftime.
Did you have any doubt at all? Be honest.
Never doubt. Never a doubt.
There was not a sliver.
Never a doubt.
During all your
I
Twitter
wish
silence
the Texans
for
had
the first
shown up
quarter,
a little
nothing.
more. I bet the Chiefs win by 13 to 18 points. Texans kind of did me wrong. They couldn't even keep it that close. Never a doubt. I told you, Jenna.
I'm really happy for you.
No. I lost
really
phone service in my house. That's why I wasn't tweeting during half of the game.
All right, time now for Put a Grade on it, sponsored by CarMax. So yesterday, Patty Mahomes became the first player in postseason history with at least 300 passing yards, 50 rushing yards, and 5 touchdowns. Nick Wright, put a grade on Mahomes' performance.
Oh, it's such a high grade that they're making him take the testing because they think he cheated. They're like, you've broken all the this couldn't have been real. It's an A++. It's a perfect score. He missed one pass the entire game. Right after the fake punt, there was a pass down the sideline that maybe almost could have been picked. It was the only pass he missed the entire football game. It's an A+.
I give him an A+ also. Patrick Mahomes is so good. He makes you forget that it's hard to play quarterback in the NFL. Every ball he threw seemed like it was just supposed to fit on the receiver's hip. That doesn't happen like that. He can throw outside of the pocket, inside of the pocket. So he made every throw he needed to make yesterday. I give him an A+ with his leadership. And he showed you the difference that his teams believe in him. You know, when he go down 21-24, you still feel like at any point we can come back. Deshaun Watson was only down 10 points in the third quarter. And you still felt like the game was completely over. That shows you how special he is.
Many still can't figure out the Titans knocking off Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens to advance to the AFC Championship game. And it was a game to forget for Lamar Jackson, the probable MVP, once again struggling in the playoffs. He had 3 turnovers. He was stopped short on 4th and 1 2 times, and Baltimore's defense couldn't stop Derrick Henry, who led the way with 195 yards. Here's quarterback Lamar Jackson after the loss.
Lamar, will it be painful for you over the next year to hear people spend all that time talking about how you haven't won a playoff game, or will you be harder on yourself than anybody else could possibly be?
No, I don't really care about what they're saying. You know, this is my second year in the league. Many people don't be able to make it to the playoffs. I got a great team with me. We ain't really worried about what the people saying. We just gonna keep going. Like I said, get ready for next year.
All right, Nate, we'll get to how the Ravens were able to do this. But first, this is now 2 playoff games where Lamar struggled after obviously having the season he had this past season. What does that say about Lamar Jackson? Well,
to be fair, the game obviously was not entirely on Lamar. There were some bad drops early. A Ravens team that was perfect, 8 for 8 on 4th and 1 throughout the year, had 2 4th and 1 snuffed out. The Titans responded to both of those by long drives for points. And the Ravens defense, which had been exceptional ever since week 3 and really great ever since they added Marcus Peters, had one of their worst games of the year. So those things are not individually on Lamar. But Lamar now in consecutive years has had his single worst game of the season in the playoffs. In consecutive years, Lamar's play has propelled Baltimore to the postseason, only to have in the postseason, he played terribly. And that is not that surprising. It's not that odd. It is something very similar to how Peyton Manning's career started in the beginning, where he was great in the regular season and then struggled mightily in the playoffs. But what I'm not going to do today is go to either end of this. I'm not going to act like this is a total indictment on Lamar, and this is why he fell to the end of the first round. This is why mobile quarterbacks can't succeed. That would be too harsh, and that would be too reactionary after we saw what he did in the regular season. What I'm also not going to do, though, is patronize him and act like this doesn't matter. It matters. And in the NFL, we've decided, fairly or not, quarterbacks are going to be judged differently than other players, and they're going to be judged disproportionately by how well they do in the postseason. It's why before Brady had 6 rings and before he had anything close to the numbers he had, there was a real argument he was better than Peyton Manning, even though Peyton Manning had a boatload of regular season MVPs, because Peyton Manning got worse in the postseason and Brady got better. And so for Lamar, it's not just going to be a long offseason, Brandon. It's going to be a long 12 months because no one will care even if it's unfair, what he does in next year's regular season. Nothing will matter for Lamar until he's back in the playoffs and has a chance to have his first good playoff game. And I know he had 500 yards total, and I understand you can say, well, this is why it wasn't on him, and it wasn't all on him. But if you were to look at the 16 games he played this year, Brandon, this was the worst one, and it obviously came at the worst possible time.
So with Lamar Jackson, this game didn't say too much for me when it comes to, like you said, criticizing him for this game, because last year playoff, I feel like they kept the training wheels on. They didn't open up the playbook too much. I feel like they wanted him to just stick to these amount of plays. You're still young, just get some experience. And at the end of the game, they let him throw it a little bit, and that's when he loosened up. This game, the Ravens didn't show up as a team. The defense didn't play well, and I think the thing that hurt the Ravens the most, Mark Ingram wasn't healthy. And this offense and this offensive coordinator, this team didn't know what to do and how to adjust. Usually Mark Ingram is going 4 yards a carry, 3 yards a carry, 5 yards a carry. And then Lamar might pull it and he go 8 yards. And that keeps the defense off balance. So not having Mark Ingram there, and I think Mark Ingram had 20-something yards this game, it really hurt this team because I felt like Lamar started to press a little bit. And it shows his immaturity from not being in the playoffs too long. And that's why I think he just needs to grow a little bit.
And maybe those
mature.
4th and 1s go a little different if Mark Ingram's back there.
Definitely. I think Mark Ingram picked those up, definitely. And I just think Lamar just needs to watch Russell Wilson this offseason and see how he takes the game. He doesn't get rattled. He doesn't press or anything. I think Lamar Jackson should have ran more in the pocket because they couldn't rush the ball. So when you drop back, they tried to have a spy on him with Tennessee, and the linebacker didn't come 3 yards to this guy once he started running the ball. So it's just take the game in your hands, do what's the best of your ability, and that's running the football, and that's how you get your team and let them gain momentum.
You know, what's interesting is we talk so much about how Lamar Jackson has handled all the accolades that came this season, how humbled he was by it, how he was able to really put everything in perspective. I don't want to talk about what I've done. I just want to talk about the Super Bowl. And I think we thought that would parlay itself into having the right mindset and not getting too rattled, or as you said, not pressing too much. How much of what happened was because the Titans played spot on, and how much of was Lamar just couldn't get it done?
It was a really good game plan, and it's during the week, last week, now I can't sit here and say I had the courage to pick Tennessee, but I kept explaining why I thought Tennessee had a very, very good shot. The rust was clear. Lamar played one game since December 13th. Prior to this weekend. Today's January 13th. So the rust was a real factor. Tennessee did exactly what we said on the show they were going to do. Listen, man, if you're going to beat us deep in the outside, you're going to beat us. But what we're not going to let you do is you gash us up the middle with your legs or with other running back legs. And the Ravens then also had some bad luck. The interceptions off receivers' hands. They go for a 4th down that they've been going for all year. That's a de facto turnover. They go for another 4th down late. They don't get it. That's a de facto turnover. All those things went against them. And Baltimore is not built to come from behind. Like, you're not going to have superstar wide receivers on that team because most superstar wide receivers aren't going to sign up to block 75% of the plays anyway, right? Like, it's not going to be an attractive offense for them. And it was the exact game plan a team needed to beat them. But so for Lamar, in his 2 career playoff games, he's 51%, 3 touchdowns, 3 picks, 4 fumbles, 2 of them lost, and a passer rating in the 60s. It's not good.
Not good.
There's no denying that it's not good. It is not different, by the way, than Peyton Manning's first 3 career playoff games, with a completion percentage of 48%, a passer rating in the 50s, including a 41-0 washout, and by the way, a loss to Tennessee as the top seed with a bye. Like, that did happen to him as well.
But was Manning the probable MVP that year?
Well, he was damn close. They were 13-3. It was year 2 for him. He was sensational. And the one other concern I have, though, for Lamar is this, Brandon. All year long, we've talked about long-term, is this play style sustainable? Is he susceptible to injuries? And what I've said is, who gives a damn if they win the Super Bowl? Well, they didn't win the Super Bowl. And I don't think Lamar's going to be able to play like this for 15 years. I think that while, most quarterbacks' window is this long, his is shorter because of the athleticism and play style. This is a year they're never going to be better positioned than the 1 seed, as healthy as they were outside of Ingram. And so that does make the defeat all the more crushing.
The reason I alluded to Russell Wilson before, because Russell Wilson also runs the ball, but nobody worries about his health because when he gets in danger, he slides. Lamar still takes hits, and that's why you wonder if he'll be sustainable. And we just have to give the Tennessee Titans offense some credit. They had some long drives that kept that defense on the field and kept their offense on the field and then let Lamar Jackson get into rhythm. You know, if he has a 3 and out, he can't come right back on the field. He has to sit for a while, think about it. And then when he come in, he has to press a little bit because he don't know when the next time he'll get back on the field. So you have to give Tennessee some credit when it comes to, hey, our offense on the field, we're rushing the ball, and hey, Lamar, just sit to the side. They always say your best defense is your offense sometimes.
I'm going to give Nick a little bit of credit. You may not have picked the Ravens, but on Friday, the Titans, on Friday, you actually kind of half whispered, had said in our newsroom meeting, you go, you know what?
I want to pick the Titans. I don't deserve any credit, though. I didn't have the courage for it.
No,
I should have just said it. I should have just said it, Jenna.
The way the Ravens played.
I bet it. I bet it. I just so I.
Worry about you got my credit, Nick. That means more than money, doesn't it?
I should have said it.
All right, on to the Vikings. They took on the 49ers. San Francisco defense was all over Kirk Cousins, cocking him 6 times, picking him off once. The Niners will now host Green Bay Sunday on Fox with a trip to Super Bowl 54 on the line. Brandon, is it time for everyone to acknowledge that the 49ers are actually a great football team? All season long, every couple of weeks, we were like, whoa, is this the real 40? Are they for real? Now we're here. Are they for real?
They're definitely for real. And I'm going to jump out on a limb right now and say they're the best team in the playoffs right now.
Wow.
The way this front four yesterday controlled the line of scrimmage, or 2 days ago, controlled the line of scrimmage, it was unreal. You know, it was so much for this defensive coordinator to get pressure with his front four. He can play zone coverage all day. You can get in all the throwing windows for Kirk Cousins. You don't have to run man coverage and let Minnesota receivers beat you one-on-one. Minnesota got a touchdown early on the outside of Diggs, and it was like, no more. We're going to run zone. We're going to force you to throw in small pockets, and they couldn't. This defensive line played so great. They controlled the game. That was a highlight for me, for the 49ers. And then this offense, man, they can run the ball. They can throw the ball. Shanahan does a great job of not letting their receivers just sit outside and have to beat one-on-one coverage. He brings everything in tight, and he beats them with just schematically, you know. So the way he just designs his offense to just get open with the receivers, get open with Kittles and the tight end, and the way Kittles buys in and blocks in the running game, they believe in this coach. This team believes in their self, and that's why I believe they're the best team in the playoffs right now.
Well, and while I won't go as far as say they're the best team in the playoffs, I have been as big of a 49er doubter as anybody. I said before the year I didn't understand why they were picked by Vegas favorite to make the playoffs. I didn't believe in the quarterback, and at every benchmark, they have passed with flying colors. They've lost 3 times this year. Once was in overtime to Seattle. Once was on the final play of the game to Atlanta. Remember that? The Julio Jones play, was he in, was he not? And the other was the 20-17 slugfest in a monsoon against Baltimore. Those are the only, they could have won all those games. Meanwhile, they whooped Green Bay, annihilated them 37-8. They got revenge against Seattle, and they beat New Orleans in a shootout 48-46 in the Superdome. They have as good of a resume as anyone. First 8 weeks of the year, they were the best defense in the NFL other than the New England Patriots. The last half of the year, the defense was not nearly itself. What happened? Well, Quan Alexander, Jaquiski Tarter, D. Ford, 1 or 2 or all of them missed time over those final 8 games. This was the first game since week 8 that all those guys have been together, and not shockingly, the defense was dominant. And the other thing that I have to give San Francisco credit for, because they have, of all the quarterbacks, well, Tannehill's probably the worst quarterback left, but Rodgers, Mahomes, and Jimmy G, one of these 3 is not like the other. They have the worst quarterback of the 3 teams that are the true contenders for a Super Bowl, but they also might have the best coach. With respect to Andy Reid, with respect to Matt LaFleur and Mike Vrabel, Kyle Shanahan, pardon me, what he does schematically, offensively, because he has 3 viable running backs, a great tight end, and a capable quarterback, even if Jimmy G is going to throw it to you at least once a game, everyone seems to be running open. Like, guys, they are such a difficult team to defend. And with all that said, I'll probably pick against them again this coming week because I've been doing it all year.
And you like to stay consistent.
But I do like to stay consistent. But with that said, they don't have a clear-cut weakness right now other than, can you rattle Jimmy G and make him make some mistakes? He made some mistakes in this game, and they still rolled. Aside from the one Stephon Diggs play, the defense pitched basically a shutout, and the offense did enough to give them a comfortable margin the whole game.
And it's a fun team to watch. You like to watch what Kyle Shanahan is doing with that team. All right, let's move on to Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers hosting Russell Wilson and the Seahawks from a frigid Lambeau. Told you it'd be cold, Nick.
Yep.
Pick this up in the fourth. Marshawn Lynch scored his second touchdown on the night. Seattle gets within 5. It's 28-23. They would need to stop the Packers one more time to get the ball back, but Rodgers finds Davante Adams for a big third down conversion with 2:17 left. Packers would have to convert one more third down to end the game, and so they convert one more third down to end the game. Jimmy Graham with the 9-yard catch. Green Bay moving on to face the team we just talked about, the 49ers, in the NFC Championship game. That guy, Russell Wilson, is heading home. Here is Aaron Rodgers after the win.
One of those games where we know every possession is going to be really important, and it's going to be loud, but this is where it gets really fun. There's only 4 teams left, and we're one of them, and we've got a legitimate chance.
About as even keel as you can get up there on the podium. What was the key, Nick, to the Packers win last night?
One guy who's been there for over a decade and a few people who got there this year. The guy who's been there over a decade is Aaron Rodgers. If you watched Week 17 against Detroit, a very important game for Green Bay because the bye was on the line. They had the potential, maybe they could have been the 1 seed if San Francisco had lost, but they also could fall to the 3 line. Rodgers was missing every long pass he threw. Everything was an overthrow. And it was the culmination of 8 straight weeks of Rodgers playing very mediocre football. In this game, he was perfect. Not a single incompletion on balls that traveled more than 10 yards through the air. On third downs, they threw it on every third and long, and he was perfect on that too. An actual perfect quarterback rating. And they trusted him at the end of the game to not give the ball back to Seattle. We're not just going to run, and then punt the ball away. 3rd and 8, we will trust you to find Davante Adams. And in fact, Davante said after the game, Rodgers checked out of the route. It was supposed to be a quick slant. He told Davante what route to run at the line of scrimmage, and that worked. And then the play to Jimmy Graham, which brings me to the other people that were the keys. Matt LaFleur did something Mike McCarthy often didn't do, which is at the end of games, not play the clock, we've got the best guy, trust him to win it for us. The last time Green Bay played Seattle in a playoff game, the conference championship game in 2014, the crushing loss when Green Bay had a big lead early that a lot of people thought was kind of the break point between Rodgers and McCarthy. McCarthy did not trust Aaron Rodgers consistently once they had a big lead. They kicked a lot of short field goals. They wouldn't go for 4. They wouldn't put the ball in Rodgers' hands in the critical moments, and they ended up losing this game. LaFleur put it in his hands at all the critical moments, and the last person who's also new is Preston Smith. When it looked like Seattle could mount a comeback, 3rd and 5, down 5, just the spot Seattle loves to live in, Preston Smith comes flying in off the edge to sack Russell Wilson. Seattle never touched the ball again. That's how Green Bay advances back to the conference championship game, Brandon.
You mentioned, I feel like LaFleur did a great job giving the ball to your best player and letting him win the game. That's what you need to do to win games in the playoffs. A guy who's been there before, a guy that you know, that you trust, that's not going to make a key mistake, put the ball in his hand, and Aaron Rodgers rewarded him. I can pick up this 3rd and 8. I can pick up this 3rd and 9. But the key to this game for me was this defense. That's one thing Aaron Rodgers never had these past couple years, a defense that can step up and get stops when they needed to. You alluded to Preston Smith making big plays. Zadarius Smith making sacks at the beginning of the game. They had Russell Wilson running for his life the whole game trying to make throws on the run. So I feel like this defense, the way they stepped up, Jair Alexander challenging these guys on the outside, let everybody know, hey, Aaron Rodgers doesn't have to have the LeBron syndrome anymore. Like, you're better than everybody. Win it by yourself. Like, no, this guy needs help. We're going to get him help on the defensive end, and that's what's going to make sure that you guys can sum up wins in the playoffs. The defense played well. Now's the key to the win for me.
Nick, you had the Packers. You still have them in the Super Bowl. You've had it very early
Chiefs was my preseason pick.
But you have had some questions about them over the last couple of weeks because of the way Aaron Rodgers has played. Aaron Rodgers reiterated in his post-game press conference, as he has all season long, look, no one really believed in us. It was nice to see the fans out there rooting for us. I don't know how many. Do you have more confidence in them? From what you saw yesterday, now that Aaron Rodgers has taken more of the sort of the front role in the win?
It was great to see Rodgers play a great game. He was also my preseason pick to win league MVP. He won't get a single MVP vote, and even if they did a 5-man ballot, he wouldn't get a single MVP vote. He was not very good the second half of the year. And had they lost this game, you'd say, okay, next year he turns 37. Are they going to have a bye again? They've only had 3 his whole time there. Are we in a different phase of his career? And the fact of the matter is we are in a different phase of his career. He's no longer the best player in the league, but he is still good enough to dial up what he dialed up against Seattle yesterday. And the other element to the game, and Seattle's just evidently going to keep doing this, is Seattle's commitment to futilely running the football. They call plays for the second straight postseason like Blake Bortles is their quarterback. Like they only can throw the ball when they have to.
They absolutely
Last year,
have to.
they lost to the Cowboys because their commitment to running the ball with no success. It was worse this year. In the playoffs this season, the Seattle Seahawks ran the ball with the running back 32 times. They gained 58 yards on those carries. One rush went for longer than 8 yards. Their best running back yesterday was Russell Wilson. Their best player yesterday was Russell Wilson. And every time they ran the ball, Green Bay, I'm sure, was like, thank you. We do not have to deal with Russell Wilson, because late in the game, Malik Turner had that drop. If he doesn't have that drop, because they now have to trust Russell Wilson, they might come back. But yeah, Green Bay's a flawed team. Green Bay's not a perfect team. But they're also now one game away from going to the Super Bowl when they have a decided advantage at quarterback in that game with Rodgers versus Jimmy G.
It's almost like the Seahawks are stuck in time when we run the ball and we play defense. Not in this new school of football. These guys at quarterback is airing the ball out. They're putting points on the board, and when you're running, and especially when you're not gaining yards on the ground. Tennessee is a different story.
Yep.
You know, Derrick Henry is their bell cow, and you trust Derrick Henry more than you trust Tannehill. You put the ball in Russell Wilson's hands if you're the Seahawks, and let him just make plays. Put him in the gun, let him run around, make plays all over the field. So I feel like Pete Carroll has to have a coordinator that's going to come in and get out of this philosophy saying we need to run the ball even when we can't. If it's working, go do it. But if it's not, you have to change it up.
I'm glad you mentioned Tennessee. They call the game like their quarterback running back combo is Ryan Tannehill, Derrick Henry, but it's Russell Wilson, Travis Homer. Like, what do you do in Seattle? I picked Green Bay because I did not trust Seattle would have the right game plan, and once again, they don't have the right game plan. And Russell's so good, they won't fire the coordinator because they won a playoff game, won 11 games. He needs someone who will unleash him fully.
And Lockett showed he can make plays last game.
Mm-hmm.
Metcalf showed up the last playoff game, showing him what he can do on the outside. I mean, it just have to change.
Back here first
Look
things
who's
first.
here.
Now joined by former NFL head coach Eric Mancini.
What's
Good
up,
morning,
Coach? I'm going to give you a hug. It's great to see you this morning. How are you, brother?
Not
Good to
awkward
see
at
you.
all, Nick.
Oh, man.
Not awkward at all.
What a glorious day to have Coach here.
So you're so
What
happy.
a glory. I
haven't seen you
bummed.
this happy in a
Long time. I was so bummed we didn't have Coach last Monday
know.
because it was, of course, the end of the Patriot dynasty. But it's even better we have him today because it's the start of a new dynasty, and we get to talk to him about
we
it.
can get to the Patriots dynasty at some point.
Okay, yeah.
We'll talk about that.
All right, let's make Nick even happier. Let's talk Chiefs.
Oh.
They beat the Texans 51-31. That's not the news. The news from this game is that they trailed 24-0 after a series of mistakes and miscues by the Chiefs. Pat Mahomes, though, mounted an unbelievable comeback to the tune of 321 yards, 5 touchdowns. First team in NFL history to win a playoff game by at least 20 after trailing by at least 20. Here is the quarterback, Patrick Mahomes, after the big win.
Obviously, we didn't want to be in that spot, but the biggest thing that I think I was preaching to the team was let's go do something special. Let's go do something special. Everybody's already counting us out. Let's just go play by play and just put our best effort out there. And I mean, obviously, I knew as a team we had to kind of everything had to go the right way. But I thought the defense stepped up, special teams stepped up. Offensively, we started making the plays we weren't making, and play by play, we just chipped away at that lead and then got the half and came out the second half and kept firing. We're going to fight to the end. We don't care what the score is. We don't care if we're down 24, if we're up 24. We're going to put our best effort every single play. And I think that's just the mentality of this team.
Hard to believe that was only Mahomes' third career playoff game, and to do what he did. Nick, how did the Chiefs mount this epic comeback?
Well, the most basic answer is because they obviously have the best player in football and the best quarterback in football. And despite his youth, despite his lack of experience, he was the steadiest hand in the room. You said it earlier, Jenna. You were spot on. The look on Andy Reid's face after the block punt touchdown, the only word I could use to describe it is catatonic. And then the look on his face after Tyreek Hill had the muff punt, it was, and Andy Reid is, by the way, going to be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame one day, I believe. We had a couple new coaches inducted this year already, and congrats to Coach Cowher and our guy Jimmy Johnson. Andy Reid's got a similar track record to them without the Super Bowl. And he's a Super Bowl away. And he saw his best chance to win a Super Bowl slipping out of his fingertips. And then Patrick Mahomes saved the day. He was, I think, aided by some very curious coaching decisions by Houston and aided by the fact that the Texans, and the reason I was so confident going into the game that the Chiefs would not just win, but crush them, was because the Texans' defense is drawing dead against Kansas City. The only way they were going to slow down Kansas City was dropped passes of guys running wide open. And that's the only way they stopped them all day. Once the Chiefs stopped dropping passes, they went on a 51-7 run. That is a high school basketball run against a small school from the suburbs, and they did it in the NFL divisional round of the playoffs. So that's how it happened. And the Texans, as soon as the Chiefs punched back, the Texans folded, and the Chiefs had no fold in them whatsoever, Coach.
Yeah, look, they were able to mount an epic comeback because they played epically bad early in the game. And then that's really where it is. And I guess if you want to spot someone else 24 points at home in a game as important as this, and for some reason not come out and play sharp initially, and hope that that's a formula that can somehow translate into the championship game and then the Super Bowl and win, I think it's low percentage football. And look, Patrick Mahomes had a great game, but really early on, until the drive at the end of the first half, he really wasn't that productive. And to me, that's when he started playing well. If anybody gets the MVP, it's got to be Sorensen for the game-changing plays that he made. And
Sorensen, and people don't know, he's the one that made the tackle and the fake punt, and then he's the one that forced the fumble.
Yeah, and back-to-back turnovers, essentially, that put Kansas City in the position that they were in. It's disappointing to watch this team start the game the way that they started, and obviously it makes it that much more dramatic and impressive that they were able to come back. I just don't know if this formula is something that's sustainable.
You'll win most playoff games you score 51 points. I don't have the numbers to prove that, but I think NFL history scoring 51 in a playoff game.
Yeah, but you don't win a lot of games when you spot someone else 24 points.
No,
I mean, we may have an aberration here, but if that's the formula you think is going to work for them.
No. I think they'll rarely give up block punt touchdowns and then have Tyreek Hill muff a punt. But the point yeah, you're right. You usually don't want to go down 24-0. But if you do have to go down 24-0, having number 15 on your team is a pretty good antidote to that.
Having Patrick Mahomes is always key. But Nico Hartman, he gave his team life with that kickoff return because the Chiefs still had to come out 1st and 10 and still try to get something going. They wasn't out of sync. Guys was open. They were just dropping the ball. They were killing themselves, shooting themselves in the foot. But once Hartman had this return, it gave his whole stadium life, gave his team life. And then the second quarter, they just found a matchup. A mismatch with Travis Kelce on the Texan safety, whoever it was. Travis Kelce was the MVP of the second quarter. They tried to double him. He was still getting catches. And once Travis Kelce opened up his lane catching the ball, it's just the Chiefs' offense as a whole just opened up. And Patrick Mahomes, he got more confidence because he was completing these easy throws to Kelce, and then he just couldn't miss. Every throw he threw after that Travis Kelce second quarter, it was golden.
Well, and to your point, Brandon, the Texans clearly made the point, we're not going to let Tyreek Hill beat us, and you run out of people. If you're gonna essentially use one extra player to go over the top of Tyreek Hill, then what's going to be wide open is Travis Kelce. You're not going to be able to double two guys, not when the Chiefs still have McCole Hardman, Sammy Watkins, those other guys, and they went to the matchup repeatedly, and it was the key to flipping the game. We
talked about the Ravens, and we thought maybe there was a lot of it that was rust, that they were off a week, and then Harbaugh didn't play the players really the week before. When it comes to this team, why do you think that the Chiefs started the way they did? Why was it so sloppy? Was it rust as well? Was it not focused? I mean, they're at home. They have that crowd. They have that energy. How does a team come out like that?
Okay, you always go through this series of decision-making late in the season, and really at the start of the season, too. There's 2 times a year where we're talking about rest versus rust, and I've seen it go both ways. I've seen teams, and New England, I thought we did a pretty good job with byes being able to come back and play strong. But you're balancing it because you don't want to go in and have someone get hurt late in the season, in that final game of the season, then you don't have them. But you also want to keep your guys sharp. And you preach and you talk about it and you try to simulate the conditions as best you can. But the fact is, if you have had that time off, guys do get away from it. It's hard to balance.
And I think there's the pressure of coming in as a massive favorite, knowing you only have something to lose, very little. The Chiefs making another AFC Championship game, while in the PM era, the pre-Mahomes era, they had never hosted an AFC Championship game. They've now done it 2 years in a row. They'd never been to back-to-back AFC Championship games. They've now done it both years with him as a starter. But if they had lost, it's a massive disappointment. And you saw from the coaching staff and the players early, except for Patrick, it was affecting them. And as much as I adore Coach Mangini, and that hug was sincere, this is the exact thing you have been demanding he do. Show us when it's really tough. Well, it doesn't get tougher than 24-0 at home in a playoff game. I guess 24-0 on the road could be tougher. But there was no, I mean, when the Pats went down 28-3 in the Super Bowl, and 7 of those points came on a Brady pick 6, and they end up winning by the skin of their teeth in overtime 34-28, it is about the brilliance of Brady. Mahomes had a 10 times greater game yesterday than that playoff game, than that Super Bowl for Tom Brady. He pitched a perfect game. And to say...
he didn't pitch a perfect game. And a lot of things...
He missed one throw the whole game.
A lot of things went right for Kansas City after a lot of things went wrong. So you get the stop on... first of all, you get the big kickoff return. Mm-hmm. Huge. Okay, then you get the stop on the fake punt. Then you get the ensuing
What did you think of the
fumble.
fake punt?
I thought both those decisions that he's getting killed for right now.
The 4th and 1 field goal
and the punt were fine. At some point, if you're up 21-0, you don't get greedy. Go ahead, you take the points. And then that other situation, the only time that you're going to want to run a fake punt is when you've got the element of surprise. And if you're going to have the element of surprise, it's when you're backed up in your own territory, and it's when you get the right look. If you try to do that at the 50-yard line or on the plus side of the field, you're going to get the other team's punt safe, which is just their defense. So I don't know how people criticize him for being too conservative in one breath and then not conservative enough in another breath. It doesn't make any sense.
This is why I would disagree with it, Coach. When you're 4th and 1 and you're playing Kansas City and you know you need points and you're in the red zone, green zone, it's around a 25. 13. So you're in the red zone. I feel like 3 points won't matter there. When you know you got Patrick Mahomes on the other end, you got to try to go up 28-0, try to get this team out of it. And it's risk reward. If you don't get it, they still have to drive down the length of the field, get their offense in sync. And when you go for it on 4th down and do a fake punt, the Chiefs just scored. You can't give this team momentum knowing they got a hot hand at quarterback. A short field like this, you just don't want them to get momentum at all, and that's why I disagree with it.
But you can get too greedy, and sometimes coaches are leaving points on the board because the analytics say do one thing, and look at how it affected Baltimore. I mean, they went for it twice on 4th and 1 the day before, and didn't work out very well for them. So you look at decisions that happen around the league as well, and the fake punt. If your thought process is we need to score points, then why wouldn't you take an opportunity like that?
But that's the problem.
If you have the look that you like.
Just very quickly, that is because you think I always criticize coaches. I think Baltimore did the exact right thing on those 4th and 1s. It's who they've been. It's a high percentage play for them. They hadn't been stopped on 1 all year long. They got unfortunate with it. The exact reason that I hate these 2 decisions is because they both happened. If you are going to be aggressive, then you do not, when a team is reeling, kick a field goal on 4th and 1 from the 13. You go for the throat. And if you're a game plan where you think, all right, we now have a big enough lead at 24-0, 21-0 to kick a field goal and make it 24-0, then you don't at 24-7 run a fake punt with the Chiefs this close to flipping it. But it's, by the way, none of it surprised me.
But you think at 24-7 they were that close to flipping it?
With Patrick Mahomes.
You thought the momentum there at that point was... So let's say you did feel that way, then that would be exactly the right time to take that chance.
If you had gone...
Because you feel... And look, any of these decisions, it's surprise onside kick versus onside kick. The difference in the numbers are staggering. You're only going to get the fakes to work if you're willing to
do it,
run the fake in an area
only a
when
lunatic
nobody
would do
expects
it.
It
Was the element of surprise was there because nobody thought you would be crazy enough to do a fake punt in that spot.
Typically when those things work.
That's correct.
Coach,
only a doofus would do a fake here. They'll never expect it. Unfortunately, they knew the coach was a doofus.
Yes, So the narrative is going to be he could do it in the regular season, but he can't seem to do it in the playoffs. I mean, is that true? And what does this say about Lamar? What happened in this game?
I don't know if that's the narrative for me as much as it's the questions that I had during the course of the season, where when the whole world knows that you have to pass and you're behind, are you going to be able to do that effectively? And Baltimore had a very specific way that they won and a very specific way that they were effective throughout the course of the season. And there's a stat at the end of the first quarter where they had the biggest first quarter point differential, biggest first quarter, I think, yards gained, yards allowed differential, and now suddenly that had changed. And they didn't handle it very well, and he didn't handle it very well, and it built upon. It kind of gained steam as the game went on, and I think he could have been helped by calls. I think that asking him to throw less and run more probably would have been a more effective way for them to get back into the game, as opposed to turning him into a significant passer as early as they did.
I agree with you, Coach. I feel this isn't all on Lamar. You know, they haven't had Mark Ingram in this game, and he's been a key running source for the Ravens all year.
Especially on those 4th and 1s where they were stuffed.
Definitely. You're going for 4th and 1, which are like, he's not Tom Brady. He's not 6'5", where he can lean forward and get that 1 yard. This is a guy that's maybe 6 foot. I mean, it just doesn't fit him trying to go for these 4th and 1s when you would usually have a bell cow of Mark Ingram. You know, they dealt with not coming from, they had to play from behind. They didn't do that much this year. And they didn't have their key running back, which just opened up the whole offense to hit the tight ends across the middle, because when you're running the ball successfully with Mark Ingram, the linebackers and everybody, they get so committed to the run, and that's when you see Andrews going to the middle of the field. So it's just their whole scheme on offense just had to just take a turn this game, and I just think the whole team didn't handle it well. And it doesn't help that they did come out rusty. They dropped key passes. You seen Ertz when he broke free for a route, he didn't look back for the ball. The ball hit him in the chest. I just felt like the Ravens picked the worst time to play the worst game of their year.
Well, and this was, to Coach's point, this was the concern. And the example I used talking about the Ravens last year, it's a cross-sport example, but I think it applies, especially now that we saw that. I just saw the game this weekend, which was the Warriors pre-Kevin Durant, which is if you are not an excellent team with a great game plan, you're drawing dead. They were the Steph and Clay and Draymond and the ball movement, you were simply drawing dead. But if you had time to prepare, if you were drilling down on what they do and what makes them special, all of a sudden you could throw them off and force them to adjust. That's how OKC got up 3-1 on them before they ended up losing the finals to the Cavs. Well, the NFL, if Baltimore got to play a best of 3 against Tennessee, it goes very differently, I believe. They see what Tennessee did. They adjust. Some of the 4th down luck swings back the other way. But, of course, that's not how the NFL playoffs go. And so now to answer the question, yes, this will be a referendum on Lamar. And be careful of anyone that's peddling either of the two extremes today. Anyone that's acting like any criticism of Lamar is unfair, biased, discounting what he did in the regular season, dismiss that. And anyone acting like that this one bad playoff game totally makes what he did during the regular season irrelevant, dismiss that as well. There's a happy medium here, which is the following. Lamar obviously is a top-flight quarterback in this league. He obviously is the reason the Ravens made the playoffs last year and the reason they got the 1 seed and were the dominant force in football this year. What is also obviously true is his rookie season and this season. The worst game he played all year was his playoff game. And they lost both those games. They weren't particularly close in either one of those games. And people are going to discount whatever he does in future regular seasons until he avenges this. And by the way, this is a story we have seen before. It was from a quarterback people had a lot less questions about, but that quarterback's name was Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning in his second year, the team was 13-3. They had a divisional home playoff game against Tennessee. Peyton was terrible in that football game. Then they made the playoffs again 2 years later. He was terrible in that football game. Then they made the playoffs the next year, and they got beat 41-0. His first 3 career playoff games, he had a passer rating average below 60, completed less than 50% of his passes, less than 200 yards per game. And the question for Peyton was, okay, we know how great you are in the regular season. Can you do it in the postseason? And so for Lamar, those questions are going to come up, and that's not unfair. That is how we have judged quarterbacks for a long time, which is it's pressure of the regular season is one thing, pressure of the postseason is another thing. And by the way, as great as Peyton was, and he won 2 Super Bowls, got to 4. He was not as good of a playoff quarterback as he was a regular season quarterback. I'm not assigning that to Lamar, but up to this point in his career, small sample size, it's obviously been true.
See, I give you a hard time about Patrick Mahomes, but you knew that they had a chance to score and score a lot of points and to score quickly because that's who he is. That's the type of offense that they have. The questions in Baltimore are, can they play from behind? And I've talked about this throughout the course of the season, and they hadn't been in that position. And to me, it's not playoffs versus the regular season. It's when he can't play the style of football that they've set up for him, and that's been catered towards his skill set, which he's extremely good at. Is there that second pitch? And that's to me the more important question is, does he have the second pitch to where when they're behind, the whole world knows he has to throw? Can he do it effectively and win a game?
And the other concern for Baltimore, big picture, is even with Peyton, you figured, okay, well, he's going to play 15 years, and he's going to play at a relatively high level
because
for the majority of it because of his style. Yep. He's just as traditional drop back passer as you get. All year long, I have said, who gives a damn if this is sustainable in 2024 if they win the Super Bowl in 2019? Well, it's hard to be better than 14-2. It's hard to have a better path than the 6 seed upsetting the 3 seed, and now they're coming to your building. And this was a missed opportunity, and I don't think Lamar's going to be this level of player for 15 years. Might be this level of player for 7 or 8 years, but that makes each season all the more critical, and it's a missed opportunity for both.
And now the team that went 14-2 in the regular season is packing. They're done for the season. Let's play a little in or out. Lamar Jackson and the Ravens came out sluggish on Saturday, falling behind by 22 points. That led many to speculate the team was rusty after benching their stars back in Week 17. Brandon, you in or out on the Ravens' decision to rest their stars in the season finale?
Oh, man, it's a long season. These guys are banged up. You've seen how the Ravens was dropping at the end of the game, Week 16, Week 17. These guys needed that rest. You don't know if guys are going to come out rusty or fresh. If you look at the Ravens and the Chiefs, they looked rusty. The Packers and the 49ers looked well rested. So I'm all in resting these guys.
Yeah, I'm in on it as well. There's nothing worse than going into the playoffs, losing one of your stars in the last game of the season when you didn't have to be in that situation. So, yeah, you risk some rust, but it's a much bigger risk losing your key player.
I've always been in on the rest, but I'm now out because they showed an amazing graphic during the game. That the last 14 teams to rest starters in Week 17 because they had a bye are now 8-6. That's damn near 500 for a team that's at home, with the bye, the best teams in football. It seems to historically, at least in recent history, have a really negative effect on the team's performance. And so I agree. I understand the point of the worst thing that can happen is a guy suffer a critical injury in that spot. I like resting guys if you don't have a bye. If you're already locked into one of the 3, 4, 5, 6 spots and you can get that week off. But 3 weeks is sometimes a little too much. That seemed to show up in Baltimore this week.
I was going to take a couple days off before the Super Bowl, but I do not want
You're
to
out of sick days already,
Yeah.
and it's January 10th.
On to the Chiefs now. Yesterday, Pat Mahomes worked his magic, led KC back from a 24-point deficit. This will go down as one of the best performances in NFL history. Brandon, you in or out on Mahomes being the best quarterback left in the playoffs?
Oh, man, what can't this guy do? He led this team to 50 points in a playoff game. I mean, he made every throw in the pocket, outside the pocket, and he has Andy Reid and Eric Bieniemy in his corner without establishing a running game. He was one-dimensional. The Texans knew he had to throw the ball the whole time, and he still delivered.
He was the running game. He had the best running attack for the Chiefs yesterday.
Yeah, I'm out, and for the reason that you just said, he's got Andy Reid, he's got an experienced veteran play caller and head coach. Aaron Rodgers is dealing with a rookie head coach who's trying to find his way. Aaron Rodgers has overcome a lot of things this year to put the team in the position that they're in. And I think he's obviously the best quarterback left in the tournament.
Coach. All right, I'm in. Obviously, you need to put it on the screen. I didn't need to say it. Everybody knows it. But they don't know it because it's me saying it. They know it because they watched football this weekend, and only a total doofus could say anyone other than Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback left in the playoffs.
Travis Kelce.
Yeah, he's got weapons. And you know what? He does have a really good.
Who else does he have?
He's got Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce and Sammy Watkins.
And who's Aaron Rodgers
it's all very helpful. No, it's great. And I really like the standard of if you're a quarterback that has a great coach, we're going to use that against you legacy-wise. I'm interested in how that will come up in the next Tom Brady discussion.
You asked who was the best left. I think that Aaron Rodgers at this point is making calls to the line of scrimmage to put them in a position to be successful. And I think that Andy Reid is sending calls in.
Okay.
Putting
you know what call Patrick Mahomes called at the line of scrimmage on 7 consecutive drives yesterday? Touchdown. You know what play we're going to play? We're going to run the touchdown play. Let's run the touchdown play again.
All right.
Let's run it again.
So now the Chiefs will face the Titans in the AFC Championship on Sunday. In Week 10, Tennessee beat KC in a close one. Brandon, you in or out on the Titans having any chance of beating the Chiefs again?
I'm in. You know, it's just some teams that guys and franchises have tough times beating. Andy Reid, when he's with the Chiefs, is 1-4 beating the Tennessee Titans. The Titans have Mike Vrabel now, a guy who's as deep as a guru. I played with Mike Vrabel. This guy is so smart. He gonna take away everything you do best and challenge you to adjust on the fly. This team believes in themselves because of Mike Vrabel, so they have more than a chance to win this game.
Yeah, I'm absolutely in on the Titans, and they're giant killers right now. And everybody that they face, there's no chance that they can beat them, but they're finding a way to beat them. And then when you've got a weapon like Derrick Henry and the willingness to ride that, I think that's a equalizer in the sense that it'll keep that explosive offense off the field. And then I do like Mike Vrabel a lot. I coached him when we were in New England. He's one of the smartest guys I've ever coached, and he does a really nice job of taking away things that can hurt him.
Stay on brand, Nick.
Listen, I don't know, just real quick, I don't know if beating one giant makes you giant killers. They beat one giant in Baltimore, and they beat one
biggest giant
one
of all.
slightly below sized person in New England earlier in the playoffs.
Of all time.
I'm out. America, telling you right now, the Kansas City Chiefs are going to annihilate the Tennessee Titans. It's Monday. We usually don't do predictions this early. I will tell you this every time I'm asked about it. You know where it's hard to run the ball with Derrick Henry a bunch? When you're down 17-0. The Chiefs spotted Houston 24 points, and they went on a 51-7 run. This game is a Ryan Tannehill, Patrick Mahomes quarterbacking matchup for a chance to go to the Super Bowl. Buy your tickets to Miami now. You'll be watching the Chiefs. They'll either be playing the Packers or the Niners. That no shot. No, I would be very impressed if the Titans can keep it within 14 points. It will be a great season for them, but it is a wrap. And that revenge tour, that Edelman, that the Patriot Van Noy talked about going on, Chiefs are going on it. They lost 4 times this year. Once
buy all your Super Bowl tickets from all the Ravens fans that bought all their Super Bowl tickets.
They shouldn't have done that because they were going to lose. They would have lost to Kansas City next week as well. Instead, they lost a week early. So no, I'm out.
Underdogs never win the NFL.
Let's get back to the Packers and Aaron Rodgers, who led Green Bay to an impressive 28-23 win over the Seahawks last night. Rodgers threw for 243 yards and 2 touchdowns. Plus, he converted 2 crucial third downs to seal the victory for Green Bay. Brendan, how important was this for Rodgers' legacy?
This was very important, because the young guys kind of stole the show this year with Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes. These guys, everybody kind of forgot about Aaron Rodgers and what he does for his team in Green Bay. And it made him seem right when it came to Mike McCarthy, when it just felt like him and Mike McCarthy just disagreed when it came to game planning and game situations last year or 2 years ago. It just felt like he was right. Just put the ball in my hands, like you alluded to, Nick, earlier. You said Mike McCarthy would have ran the ball, punted it away.
Yep, late in the game. When they had when Seattle punted it back to Green Bay needed 2 first downs to ice the game. They have a 1st and 10. They run for 2 yards. They then threw it on 2nd down, incomplete, threw it on 3rd down, and got the big play, and then they threw it on another 3rd down. In the past, they just said, run it 3 times, you don't get a 1st down, trust our defense to hold on, and very often the defense didn't.
And previously, you've seen when Aaron Rodgers seemed frustrated at some of the calls when Mike McCarthy made those calls, but LaFleur came in and trusted his guy.
we don't talk enough about what a rookie head coach like LaFleur did this year, because we spent the preseason talking about their relationship, and then we spent during the season talking about why Aaron Rodgers hadn't been that good. Meanwhile, here they are. You're talking about Aaron Rodgers' legacy. Matt LaFleur was the head coach that has sort of driven them to this point.
Oh, well, and I'm glad you mentioned the Mike McCarthy part of it, Brandon, because if they lose this weekend, if they had lost this weekend, and Mike McCarthy is the newly minted head coach of the Dallas Cowboys, and Aaron Rodgers loses a home playoff game after a 13-3 season to be one and done in the playoffs, then a lot of people are saying, oh, if this was a divorce, if we want to say who won the divorce, so to speak, who won the breakup, it'd be the coach of the Cowboys, not the quarterback who's on his couch. Instead, Rodgers played brilliantly. He didn't have eye-popping stats, but he had every single pass he threw that went over 10 yards in the air was complete. On third down, he had a perfect passer rating, and he made the two biggest plays of the game. A check to Devontae Adams on 3rd and 8, and then the play to Jimmy Graham, which I'm sure in Rodgers said after the game was a little special because Jimmy had played in Seattle. Those two plays prevented the terrifying Russell Wilson from getting the ball back with a chance to win the football game.
And the thing about Rodgers' legacy that helps so much is he's going to say, I told you so. If they can beat San Francisco and get to a Super Bowl, now you're going to wonder how many Super Bowls would he have got to if he'd have been like, hey, just trust me with the ball. I told you, I'm the guy that's going to get us to the promised land. It goes to say, how many Super Bowls could Rodgers have gotten to if he would have just had his guy, his corner? So this game was very huge.
Well, that's it. One of the great what-ifs in NFL history is the last time the Seahawks and Packers played in the playoffs. 2014 NFC Championship game when the Packers have the 12-point lead late and they end up blowing it and losing in overtime. If the Packers hold on to that, and that was a game where McCarthy took the ball out of Rodgers' hands a lot. They kicked 2 very short field goals late in the game. They just tried to take the air out of it instead of trying to let Rodgers get first downs to where they didn't have to give the ball back to Seattle. What we would have gotten is Aaron Rodgers with 1 Super Bowl just a few years prior, playing Tom Brady, who at the time had 3 Super Bowls, hadn't won one in a decade, and had lost 2 straight. For Rodgers, it would have been a chance like, forget the best quarterback other than Brady. He would have had 2. Brady would have lost 3. And all these opportunities. Since then, that's the closest the Packers had been to a Super Bowl until right now, this moment. They blew that game against Seattle with Mike McCarthy there. They beat Seattle and held on this year with Matt LaFleur.
Pat Mahomes mounted an unbelievable comeback, 321 yards, 5 touchdowns. He became the first player in postseason history with at least 300 passing yards, 50 rushing yards, and 5 touchdowns. Nick, did Mahomes cement himself as the best player in the NFL?
No, because he cemented himself as that last year. And anyone being fair, anyone evaluating, anyone watching knew it. And all year long, Lamar won the MVP and deserved it. And by the way, for a good portion of the season, Russell Wilson was better, had a better year than Patrick as well. Now, Patrick had his ankle sprained and his kneecap dislocated, and he Wolverined himself back to health in 2 weeks. But still, those guys had better seasons. But just like there have been individual years where guys had better seasons than LeBron, we've known for 14 consecutive years who the best player in the world is. And I don't know if Patrick will hold the title for 14 consecutive years, but it's now 2 straight years. He's the best player in football. And even my friend Coach Mangini cannot pull away from his performance in this one. You can pull away from the team coming out slow. But why did they have 2 3-and-outs early? Because of perfectly placed balls that were dropped. And why did the team stay steady in the midst of falling down 21 and then 24-0? Because their quarterback did. And the last check mark we have wanted to see from Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs, down, what does he do? Well, his first playoff game, they never trailed. His second playoff game, they were down to the New England Patriots in the 4th quarter, and he got the Chiefs in the lead twice, and his defense couldn't hold it. And then with 20 seconds left, he got him in field goal range to force overtime, and then he never got to touch the ball. And in this game, they went on a 51-7, 7 consecutive touchdown run. Asked and answered. He's the best player in the league. He's the most terrifying player in the league. He's the most unstoppable player in the league. And Coach, I think even you know it.
For weeks and weeks and weeks, we talked about Lamar Jackson. And you were on the Lamar Jackson bandwagon, I think, as hard as anybody.
I said he was league MVP.
Yeah, and I don't ever remember you talking about Patrick Mahomes with such passion. And look, there's always that underlining love that you have for him that's constantly simmering.
At every time I was asked, I said Patrick Mahomes is the best player in football. Every time.
I feel like you lean pretty heavy towards Lamar Jackson.
Incorrect.
And then here we are.
Incorrect.
1 week where Lamar doesn't have a very good game, and Patrick spots the other team 24 points, doesn't really have a significant drive to the last 2 minutes of the first half. But that's like last year's AFC Championship game, where he didn't really play well to the second half as well. So we've got that going.
Well, in this game, he had 4 touchdown passes in the second quarter. I think that's the first half, but I'll have to check my abacus. I think the second 1 quarter, 2 quarters.
Yeah, one was
half
like
would be the first 2 quarters.
One was a 6-yard drive. One was like a 35-yard drive. Those were nice, and you do have arguably the best tight end in football, as well as another really.
Who's better than him, Coach?
Who's better?
If he's not the best player in football, who's better than him?
I think that you could make a case that Lamar Jackson throughout the course of the season was better than him.
Who's better than him?
I think that Aaron Rodgers is better than him at this point. And we may have an opportunity to see that. We may have an opportunity to see that play out. And the reason I say that isn't just to give you a hard time, although that's part of it. It's the fact that Aaron Rodgers has had to overcome coaching to some degree. And this isn't a shot at Matt LaFleur, but as a rookie head coach, there's a lot of things that you don't know. And there's a lot of mistakes that you do make. And Aaron Rodgers, throughout the course of the season, I think has done a great job of putting that team in a position to win when maybe there would have been some challenges with a less experienced guy like Patrick Mahomes.
I think he definitely showed that he's the best in the game. Just his composure on the field. The throws he made, he didn't come out and have any flaws this game. He didn't have no sluggish in him early. Like you alluded to, Nick, he hit Kelsey in the hands. He hit Robinson in the hands. And although he does have a great signal caller and Andy Reid with him, his decision-making is impeccable. He always goes to the right guy on every route. And just the composure he has when he was going to Kelsey. The whole second quarter, he didn't come off of Kelsey. He knew he had a mismatch, and he was going to feed that mismatch all game. So his decision-making, all the throws he can make in the pocket. Romeo Crennel tried to send him blitzes to get him outside the pocket, see if that'll rattle him. He making great throws outside the pocket, great decision-making, knowing when to throw the ball away, when to force in tight coverage. Everything he has in his arsenal is making him the best quarterback in the game today.
I think Tennessee will do a better job of keeping him in the pocket, of having
do a worse job.
of having a controlled pass rush like they did with Baltimore. I think there's gonna be a lot of challenges that he's gonna have to overcome that obviously he didn't have to overcome this past game. And the last time they played, 5 field goals they weren't able to convert, and very many.
Listen, the last time they played the Titans, the offense only scored 32 points, and so that wasn't enough to win because the defense hadn't rounded into form yet. But listen, what will happen is they'll beat the Titans, and then you'll come in and talk about how you're still not impressed, and it's fine. But when they win the Super Bowl, you're out of cards to play. And anyone doubting him is out of cards to play. There's no questions left. There's none left. This was one of the I want to be very clear. I will look into the camera. This was one of the single greatest playoff games anyone has ever played in the 100-year history of the sport. This was a team who the entire crowd thought they were going to lose. The head coach looked mummified and just catatonic. Like, how could this be happening again? Travis Kelce, the best tight end in football, drops it. Tyreek Hill, one of the best speedsters in the league, muffs a punt. Everyone's terrified, except for 15, who said, guys, make a play to give us a spark, and I'll take care of the rest. And McCall Hardman did his part, and Daniel Sorensen did his part, and Travis Kelce snapped into form, and all of a sudden, Patrick Mahomes is hitting him here and there, keeping a foot behind the line of scrimmage, having that awareness to keep it right behind the line of scrimmage to get at Travis Kelce there. He was perfect. There is nothing to be said about it other than, oh my God. How lucky are all of us that we get to watch him play for the next decade plus? How lucky are all of us that the Chiefs training staff relocated his kneecap on the field so he didn't miss the rest of the season? Because this is what greatness is. This is Brady coming back from 28-3 down in the Super Bowl, except that took Brady 25 minutes. Mahomes did it in 9 to take the lead and then run away in the second half. That's what we all saw yesterday.
I used to think that Skip Bayless had the market cornered on love for people, but I think that you might. I think that you might have positioned yourself to love as hard as he does.
Listen, man, I appreciate greatness.
That soliloquy that you just put together was quite impressive.
I appreciate
7 straight
greatness.
touchdowns. It's hard.
7 straight touchdowns.
I'm letting Nick have his moment. He waited a long time. We are actually here. I say enjoy it.
I mean, there's about to be another moment next Monday. And then a few Mondays from that, another one.
Well, I can't promise all those, but right now, here's your moment. Thank you for listening to the First Things First podcast. Remember, leave us a review and tell us what you think. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts and catch us on FS1 Monday through Friday, 6:30 a.m. Eastern.